All right, welcome friends and family. Excited to be here with you today, this second week in February. My good friend Casey and I are continuing to go through the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And today, we're going to be talking about something that's very, very valuable, how to get cooperation. Like, how do you work with other people and get on the same page with other people? Casey, I know you and I both read through this chapter. How do you get cooperation? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think, I think it's very common just to, bully your way into it. You just tell them this is how it's going to be and they got to like it. And if they don't,
right.
then tough luck and you go about your business, right?
That's how the West was settled.
And that's unfortunately the way that a lot of people go about trying to get cooperation is by asserting their power and their dominance and expecting people to bend to their will. And it causes a lot of resentment in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And, obviously that's not what this book teaches.
Right.
But that is the common way people do it.
You reminded me of a story, if I may. John Sims, he owns the Kentucky Fried Chickens. He owns one here in Cookeville, and he owns one in Sparta. Of course, we used to, years ago, go to FHA in the morning, or FCA. In the morning on Mondays, he'd have a room full of Christian athletes and do a Bible study in there and share out there. It was this phenomenal situation that John Sims opened up. John and his wife Terry overseeing Young Life in Sparta, so they did that for years. Now, John one day he was wanting to start a Bible study, and we were at Life Church. And so we go in and we were trying to go through the proper process of being able to start this Bible study. And I honestly didn't know John was wanting me to co-Bible lead with him. I thought he was just kind of wanting me to go and help him with the introduction. And by the time we were done, he had just pretty well put the whole thing on me. And I was a little surprised, but I thought it was kind of humorous as well. But John told me, he said in that conversation, he said, Elijah, he said, I was a linebacker in high school, a football player. He said, I used to run people over and make them like that. And he looks over, he kind of smiles. He said, I bet you can't believe that about me. Well, I've never seen that side of John until that day, that day when he was kind of doing that. But the funny thing is he said, I bet you can't believe that. And I said, I've always wondered, how can you run people over and make them like it? Bobby Sebastian was there, and he says, oh, you just pay him enough. And so the truth is to what you just said right there. You can run people over, but there's a price to pay for that. If you choose to take that approach in life, then expect to pay 2 to 10 times more than you should have to pay to keep people around you, because they're not going to put up with that forever, are they?
No, they don't.
They
don't, and it's not the way to go about it. So obviously, in this chapter with this book of How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Get Cooperation, it is, having a healthy conversation and getting that person to see your point of view as their point of view.
And you have a gift for this, so let me ask you, how do you go about doing that?
Well, obviously anybody, including myself, can be wrong. So this is obviously to be used whenever you know that your position is correct, or you firmly believe that your position is correct. We're not trying to.
Pretty sure it is.
We're not trying to get cooperation in the wrong direction,
right,
in any ways. But in that moment, it is asking enough questions. It's just asking questions and saying, well, what if this? Or, well, okay, how do you suppose? But whatever else, you just ask enough questions until...
Yeah. If it were you, how would you do it?
Right.
You're in this situation, I'm having a little trouble figuring this out. Could you help me with that?
Yep.
And all of a sudden, when you take that approach versus just saying, this is how you do it, as you kind of jokingly started off with, into the side of, I'm just not real sure exactly how to go about this. Could you give me a hand with this? You generally will get their support, their buy-in, and then from there, it's their idea. So it goes to another level of getting done versus this is KC's idea or Elijah's idea.
Yeah, right. For sure. So it's just asking enough questions and, again, getting them to see it as their point of view. I mean, that's where that is, and it's
Casey?
just the right questions.
Do you believe you have to believe in people to ask those questions?
I think there's definitely and that's a marvelous question. I think that there is a depth to that. I think that you have to, I think that there has to be some form of cooperation already there. Mm-hmm. In some ways, I think there has to be some form of respect or trust into that. And of course, if this book is made to be a sales book, it's more than just that. But the intention is to help be a better salesman. I mean, using these concepts. But
let me ask you this: in school, back in your day when you were a teacher, coaching tennis players, primarily girls, and working in the shop with primarily rough kids, did you have to believe in them sometimes to, like, it's easier just to tell, right? But if you believe in somebody and you believe that they're smart enough to get to the right answer, then you're being very patient by asking, but also you kind of already know, they probably know the answer too. And most people, what percentage of people would you say are used to just kind of being told what to do? Even in the workforce today and even in schools?
I would say over 80%.
So very few are actually having anybody in their life that are kind enough and potentially gentle enough to come beside them and ask questions that do you feel like that maybe even helps build their self-esteem and empowers them?
Oh, yeah. I would think that it does anyway. I mean, obviously, I guess there's always some that won't. But I believe it as a majority, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's always, you think back in experiences that you may have had prior to, and then when somebody took the time to make it like they cared. And I say that, sounds kind of like I say that they're pretending like they cared. That's not the case. I mean, they did care. They wouldn't have took the time to do it.
Right.
But when you get that feeling of that caring and things like that, you latch on a little more, you prep up, and some people take a little more encouragement than others to get to that point.
I was that guy. I needed a lot of encouragement. But I read a book a while back, and it was on tennis, and I forget the name of it, but it was all about what you and I are talking about. And it said that they changed their technique from telling them how to hit it and where to hit it, and when they made a mistake, how to change that, to one simple thing. And I cannot remember the name of this book, but it's a very popular book. If I said the name, a lot of the listening audience would know the name of this book. But they said they changed their technique to asking, so why do you think the ball went over there when you did that? And just by those simply changing from a coach that tells them what to do to a coach that empowers them by asking them good questions, they would think it through. If you wanted the ball to start going the other direction, how would you position your body to do that? And all of a sudden now they're involved in it and they're thinking it through versus just tell me, coach, just give me the answer. And now they're getting it on their own. So when they're actually in the game playing, they could start, instead of
being self-correct.
Self-correct, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same philosophy I had when I was coaching then. And you and I spent some time coaching and kind of a similar philosophy there. So it makes 100% sense. It just does. And that's a solutions-driven attitude, which is one of our core values here.
Yes.
And it's
and servant leadership that. Because you were out there at 9 o'clock on Saturdays when you could have been doing a lot of things helping me learn how to serve. One thing I love about UKC is, and I'll never forget it, and I bet you I share this with people, no telling how many times a month I get to repeat this, but I'll say this often. One thing I really like about UKC is that when you started playing tennis, you thought to yourself, what's the one thing I could do that would separate me from the pack? And this may be the reason why when you were in high school you ended up number 7 in the state. But you asked yourself that question, what's the one thing I could do that would really separate me from all the other competitors? And that answer, if I remember correctly, was your serve. You thought, man, if I can get a powerful serve that can't even hit the ball back, then I'm going to win just because of that. So you ask, when you get cooperation with yourself, when you ask yourself good questions. And so that, like you said, self-correcting or learning how to think, not being programmed on necessarily what to think, but programming on how to think
Yes.
is super valuable.
I agree. And I think that's a, a skill that as a generation, as a nation, has been lost, is the power to think, because Google's right there, Siri's right there, all that information is right there. And I think a lot of us, have learned to not have that ability to think through difficult situations. And it takes a lot to get cooperation from somebody. And there's an amount of trust, affection, that goes into to getting that cooperation. Because it takes time from both sides. It does.
And so often too, like in anything when you're educating students or trying to educate sellers or buyers, a lot of times in that process you do have to get trust. And a lot of times what uneducated teacher, I think, would do, or an uneducated salesperson would do, is they would come in and try to tell you this is what you should do. This is how you do it. This is what you do. And like you say, it's kind of we made a light joke of it in the beginning, but kind of a normal approach to just come on and tell people pretty strongly how to do it and what to do.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when you're trying to educate people and you're trying to get cooperation, as you just spoke of, one of the best ways to do it is just to come beside them and ask enough questions to where it brings out of them what's already in there generally. But you got to believe it's in there, or you wouldn't be caring to ask the question.
Right.
And so if somebody says, well, this is too much for this home, I would never pay that. And you repeat that back to them, well, this is too much. This is too much for the home, and you would never pay that? And you ask them a question, then they've got to take time to really process through that and think.
They've got to justify the answer versus you defending it. So yeah, it's little things like that get that, and if you step back and look at it, some people's going to look at that and say, that's manipulation or something like that. But again, it goes into your intent on how you use it. Could you use it for manipulation? You 100% could. You could use it just like anything. You could use it for evil if you wanted to. But that's not what we're teaching on. We're teaching on this for the betterment of people and learning how to be more cooperative with the people that we work with, the people that we associate with, live with, and.
Well, you do what I say because I've been a tennis coach for 18 years and I know better than everybody else. And you put off that attitude. They may do what you say, but odds are they're not going to do it long, and they're not going to do it with a great heart, where even though you've been doing it 18 years, you care enough to ask them questions, and you just kind of go back in that position of, man, I remember what I was like on day one. I remember how I played year one, and you see the potential in them, and you begin to educate them to think and play at a higher level. That I know that could be used manipulatively, but the truth is, when you really care and you got a heart to help people, you're just educating. And I think too that, I always say this, I think sales is serving, nothing more, nothing less.
I agree.
And I think when you serve people well, you educate them and you don't come over. And it's easy to get an ego. You see doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, teachers, parents, husbands, wives, we get an ego and we want to kind of come over you, where if we can slow it down a little bit and just ask enough questions, we get on the same page, we're on the same team, we should be playing together, I want to see good for you. When you can kind of come like that right there, that cooperation grows. And then I've seen you do it with some of our great team members upstairs right now, where they want to do a lot more to help you. They want your approval. They want to see that, hey man, the coaching you're doing is working. So now they even work harder to do it versus if you just come over and say, well, just do it because I said. If you want a job here, this is what you do. So it is we know that. See, to me, that is so backwards, and that is the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
Where this is the right way, and as you say, I guess the right way could be used the wrong way. But if you're going to help educate people and try to get the best for them, this is the best way.
Yeah, if you're doing this with the right intentions, it's hard to do this the wrong way.
Right.
It is.
And if you do start off into something and you realize that it wasn't going exactly like you wanted it to, then you can always back away a little bit and say, gosh, I thought that this was going to be, but obviously, we're under contract. We've done the home inspection. There's a lot more here than what meets the eye. I think we need to get back out and get looking again.
Yeah. I mean, just like anything, it's taking it as it comes, and being the best that we can be in the moment, and that comes from the knowledge that we attempt to get and utilize. The difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is knowing it, and wisdom is knowing how to apply it. And so the knowledge is in this book. The knowledge is in our conversations and many conversations that are happening out in this world today that don't involve us. There's a lot of knowledge being spread, but
the Bible says that wisdom cries out at Main Street, cries out. So it's not real hard to get wisdom. It's there to get, or knowledge. And it's not real hard to get out there and learn how to apply it. But the thing is that you got to want it, you got to walk into it. And so many people at times will just get closed-minded because they think they know best, or this is the way we've always done it. And that's fine. But if you go at that person saying they're wrong, you're probably never going to get that acorn to open up. But if you can come beside them and say, well, I understand this the way you always did it. Can you explain to me why you did it? And me and you all know the story of the frying pan and how they chop the back of that ham off every year. And finally, at the Christmas dinner, the daughter asked the mom, why do you always cut the back of that ham off? Why? And she said, well, it's a good question. I don't know. Let me call your Meemaw. Let's find out. And she said, well, honey, the pan we had, it was only so big, so we couldn't fit the whole ham on it, so we just cut it in half so we could get it on there. So when you ask enough questions to help people come to the right answers, that means everything. So education, man. We believe it's in you. We believe it's in us. The best way to get that out is through cooperation. And whenever we can cooperate, we can just go so much further. Me and Casey, together we're better. If we go out there and we try to do everything on their own, here's the thing. We're going to hit those lids and hit our limits so much quicker. But when we're pulling together and we're cooperating, not only do we get the advantage of being sharper, but we get the blessing of being able to help other people. So, guys, that's it. I think that's it for us today. Just remember, the secret to cooperation, let the other person feel like the idea is his or hers. Thank you. Have a great day.